everyone, my name is Sarah Lara and I'm a Master of Social Work student at Our Lady of the Lake University. I'm here to give you a presentation on human trafficking as shown here. In slide 1, we will begin with a brief definition on human rights. Human rights are rights inherent to all human beings without distinction as to race, color, gender, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. We all have the exact same human rights. The word human is used because these rights are universal. They are intended for all humans all around the world, just because we are human. There are several documents that were created over the years to protect humans, such as the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. From these documents, humans agreed all around the world that as humans we have the right to live, the right to freedom of speech and religion, freedom from fear, as well as many other human rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights states in Article 4 that no one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all forms. Slavery is a violation of human rights, as this presentation was going to further discuss in upcoming slides. So what is slavery and human trafficking? Well, human trafficking, Polaris Project gives a great definition. Human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery where people profit from the control and exploration of others. As defined under U.S. federal law, victims of human trafficking include children involved in the sex trade, adults age 18 or over who are coerced or deceived into commercial sex acts, and anyone forced into different forms of labor or services, such as domestic workers held in a home or farm workers forced to labor against their will. Created by the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights contains a list of 30 human rights. Of these 30, slavery is listed within them. There are several types of human trafficking, which we will further discuss here in slide 4. Types of human trafficking. There's trafficking for sexual exploitation, trafficking for forced labor, commercial sexual exploitation of children in tourism, trafficking of organs, and also associated is people smuggling through organized criminal networks. These victims are living in constant fear, they're held against their will, and they're forced into slavery. Listed here is worldwide statistics. As one is able to see, slavery is very much alive today as it was 100 years ago. 27 million people in modern-day slavery, 12.3 million adults and children in forced labor, 2 million children exploited by the global commercial sex trade, 161 countries affected by human trafficking, 116 countries that have enacted legislation to prohibit all forms of human trafficking. Laws passed over the years. Over the years, many laws have passed to help fight human trafficking, as one can see from this slide that the Mann Act was the first in 1910. Trafficking is still an ongoing battle, and as each year passes, we continue to fight for justice and either add new laws or we revamp old ones. The state of Texas has laws listed here as well as resources, as you can see in this slide. Although there is federal law, the state legislation, they need solid laws in place to fight human trafficking because in most cases they are the first to encounter the crimes locally. In 2003, Texas was the first state to pass legislation criminalizing human trafficking. Also in 2009, a second bill was passed to strengthen the prostitution and human trafficking statutes, law enforcement training, and other prevention tools. Most recently, House Bill 3000 was passed to strengthen consequences for traffickers with multiple offenses. In addition to laws, Texas has resources available for victims. Listed within the slide are only a few resources located in Texas that specifically provide help for trafficking victims. Listed are the names of the websites if anyone's interested in researching any of them. Legislative hurdles. As years go by and citizens in our government realize that slavery is still very much alive, legislation creates more laws that desperately need to be passed. Victims need increased protection and assistance. Many states are trying to create funds dedicated to helping these victims. For example, with housing, food, and education, basic needs to get them on their feet after years of forced trafficking. The funds would partially come from the public sale or auction of the property that has been forfeited by the defendants convicted of trafficking. Those found guilty would also have to pay a fine, and this money would go towards the victims to help them start their new life. Training for law enforcement, which is listed here, is also a legislative hurdle. As with sex trafficking, it can be difficult to determine whether or not the person found as a prostitute willingly or if they're a victim of human trafficking. Victims are generally treated as criminals and not as victims because of stereotypes and unjustly accusations. Victims also need treatment rather than jail time. They believe they've committed a crime and they should be punished. In turn, the victim will usually willingly suffer unjustly prosecution. Also proving that the sex trafficker knew the victim was a child. The sex trafficker immediately, because of age, denies knowing that the victim was a child. Lastly, addressing traditional prostitution laws. There's a difference between prostitution and sex trafficking, and laws are needing to be brought up to date on this difference. Social welfare policies. The Department of Health and Human Services has a very active role in the fight against human trafficking. They have a great website here filled with information on social welfare policies, especially directed towards this issue. Listed within this slide is information responding to the trafficking of children, and although it's listed for children, each resource pertains to both adults and children. So who are the victims and why? In the end, anyone can be a victim of human trafficking. There's no consistent type of person that constitutes a trafficking victim. All types have been identified as victims: men, women, adults, children, U.S. citizens, as well as foreign nationals. So questions to ask ourselves: why is human trafficking so popular? Why is slavery still alive today as it was 100 years ago? Who's benefiting from it? Well, many years ago, slavery was legal. It was popular and it was in demand, and it was out in the open because it was legal. The slaves were unable to express themselves because they had no human rights. They couldn't just say, hey, I need help. Well, today, human trafficking is very popular. There's more slavery today than there was 100 years ago. And today we have human rights. So, what's going on? Well, first off, organized crime is mainly benefiting from human trafficking. Money rules our world, and unfortunately, vulnerable populations around the world bear the brunt of abuse and pain. They're promised a better life, food for their families, and work in another country. These promises turn into slavery with no follow-through. Contributing factors. Over the years, technology has evolved, making money, greed, and power a high priority for criminals. With the improvement in technology, human trafficking has become low risk for perpetrators getting caught. Contributing factors include vulnerability, fear, greed, internet scams, technology, supply and demand, production of pornography, lack of education, and lastly, again, the fact that trafficking is low risk. All of these factors contribute to human trafficking. They contribute individually and together as well. The impact on society. Human trafficking poses a huge threat to society. It deprives people of their human rights and freedoms. It's a global health risk, and it fuels the growth of organized crime. Human trafficking has a devastating impact on individual victims, who often suffer physical and emotional abuse, rape, threats against self and family, passport theft, and even death. It goes beyond individual victims. It undermines the health, safety, and security of all nations that it touches. In addition, it puts a delay on international and national economic growth. It negatively impacts local and national labor markets due to the loss of human resources. Prevention strategies, there's many prevention strategies to human trafficking. In addition, the media plays a vital role to helping fight this issue. Awareness is the first step. As one can see listed in this slide, the media has a hand in each and every one of these prevention strategies. All you have to do is Google human trafficking and several websites appear. There's ads to raise awareness on billboards, television, radio, and local banners put up by support groups. In addition, there's a day set aside each year to help support the cause. January 11th is National Human Trafficking Day. So how can the community help? Well, when fighting human trafficking, community involvement is very important, especially in the vulnerable populations. Public awareness and education are the first steps a community can take to help this issue. Although we've all heard of slavery, many are unaware of what human trafficking actually is and the fact that it occurs in our own neighborhoods. Being aware of what it is and all that it entails will help start the process of detecting the issue. And then comes education, community involvement, and will give the community more of what to do when it is discovered. Advocating for change. As a social worker, how can we help with human trafficking? Well, again, awareness and education is the key to solving any issue. When advocating for change, a social worker, to help fight human trafficking, we must be aware of the subject at hand. As a social worker, advocacy is part of the job title. Social workers are trained professionals working to help those in need, as well as creating a more humane and just society. With all of this in mind, we must be aware of it and be educated on it. Research will help one learn about human trafficking in order to better assist advocating for change. Once educated, we can assist with raising awareness among local law enforcement, civil society, and policymakers. In addition, there's many global human trafficking agencies dedicated to fighting this issue. As a social worker, we can be aware of these agencies and assist them when confronted with this issue. To advocate for services, a social worker can compare the local agencies to the global agencies. For example, a global agency may use a tactic that a local agency does not, and this would be a great way to advocate for change by offering this tactic as a suggestion to your local agency. Most importantly, the overall goal is to stop the cycle of abuse and trafficking. Many victims are from vulnerable communities. They were deceived. Programs such as vocational training can reduce the risk of them being sucked into the situation again. Lastly, this is where being a voice comes into play. A social worker can not only speak for the victim to help achieve needed services and programs, but can also work with local agencies and the community to help create these programs and services. Be a voice is very important. Be aware, be educated, research, and be a voice. Thank you. Again, my name is Sarah Lara, and this was my presentation on human trafficking.